our next speaker now, Kirsteen Harrison, Advisor to the Board regarding environment and sustainability at Zumo. Kirsteen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I'm really delighted to be following on from Ian, because what I have to say ties in really closely with what he's saying, and I'm really fascinated with everything that he said. I was also really pleased to hear Yasmin say that the green revolution is a huge opportunity for the sector. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about. And I was also really pleased to hear Richard say that he believes that security should be thought of as a business enabler, because that's exactly what I think about in terms of decarbonisation. And again, that will be a big part of what I talk about now. So just to give a little bit of background, I am an environmental advisor to Zumo. Zumo is a decentralised finance platform. We're based in the UK. We're FCA registered, and we have both a B2B side of the business and a B2C side of the business. And we deal primarily with cryptocurrencies. So a couple of years ago, we set out on a journey of developing our own net zero strategy. And at the time, there wasn't really a huge amount out there in terms of industry guidance, in terms of industry collaborations. And over those 2 years, we've seen a lot of movement. We've seen the formation of the Crypto Climate Accord. We've seen the formation of an ESG working group within Global Digital Finance, and we've seen the Bitcoin Mining Council emerge. So we're really pleased to see all this development, and we're really pleased to be part of some of those groups. But we published a state of play report last year and launched our own net zero strategy around the same time. And the reason we published a state of play report when we did is because we felt there was a huge amount of polarisation in the debate around cryptocurrencies and electricity consumption. And at the time, it was really quite hard to find reasoned and accurate information as to what the impacts might be. The Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance has got a fantastic resource, and it's really worth looking up their website, but there wasn't a huge amount else. So we put out a state of play report. We looked at different methodologies to calculate Bitcoin electricity consumption and how you might allocate that to a user or holder of cryptocurrency or to a platform like Zumo. And we've recently, within the last couple of weeks, followed that up with a white paper where we have publicly made available the methodologies that both Zumo has developed, but others that we've collated from other places that other people have made available, and really looked at the pros and cons of those and how we might use those within the crypto space to decarbonise. So anybody who's interested in that report, it's on our website at zumo.money, and it's freely available for anybody to download. But we've focused very much on decarbonisation in terms of electricity. In my view, that makes crypto actually quite an easy sector to decarbonise compared to many other sectors that have much more complex value chains and emissions that might not be immediately obvious, that might be caught up in supply chains, for example. So we've done a lot of work on the apportionment of electricity consumption to different players in the system, and we are doing a huge amount of work at the moment on how we purposefully build a renewable energy strategy. So what we want to work towards, and we believe that the crypto sector and to an extent the wider fintech sector as well, has a huge opportunity to really drive the use of renewables globally. The fantastic thing about renewable electricity is that firstly, technologically, we know how to do it, and we cannot yet say the same for many other sectors. Things like aviation, we're in the early stages of being able to decarbonise, whereas electricity, we know exactly what we need to do. And therefore, we have both a responsibility and an opportunity as a sector to really drive that forwards. Bringing it out to the wider fintech sector, though, and again, to build on Ian's comments earlier, something that basically there's a lot of new guidance emerging on this, because what's known as scope 3 emissions, which are value chain emissions, are growing. And so there's various definitions emerging of ways that companies can allocate these, and it's very relevant to the fintech sector. So the traditional finance sector is now under a huge amount of pressure to look at their own financed emissions. So that is what emissions they might be responsible for through the investments that they make in sectors, for example, such as oil and gas, but even in other sectors, an investment will be responsible for some carbon emissions, and they're known as financed emissions. But very interestingly, the Race to Zero, which is a UN-backed organisation recently published guidance on advertised emissions. Now bear with me because this doesn't immediately appear relevant to the fintech sector, but I believe it does have relevance. So advertised emissions are those emissions that companies that are involved in advertising or marketing are indirectly responsible for through the businesses that they work with. So if a company chooses to advertise, again, for the oil and gas sector or something similar, they have a responsibility for those emissions. Now, I believe there's a really clear direction of travel here. Financed emissions are now very well understood and are being embedded by traditional financial institutions. But with the emergence of things like advised emissions and advertised emissions, I think the direction of travel is going to be very clear. And I think that we will see a wider responsibility within the fintech sector to take some kind of accountability of those emissions. So what I believe that presents us with is a massive opportunity in terms of developing very transparent and coherent net zero strategies now in readiness for that happening, because I believe it will happen sooner rather than later. The pace of change that we're seeing in the development of net zero strategies and sustainability strategies in general is only increasing, and it will continue to increase at pace. The transparency that's required will continue to increase at pace. So I think at the moment we need to see this as a huge opportunity for the sector and an area that we can get involved in at really, really early stages. But a word of warning, I think it will soon become a risk if we don't engage fully at this time now.